We all believe that Dirk is in a lot of trouble. I mean, that's clear to see, given the history, given the lyrics, given the songs, given all the stuff on the internet, given all the details that we know, given the other OTF members that were arrested, given the indictment and some of the stuff we've already read on Dirk himself. The details continue to pile up. We continue to watch all this backstory and all this lead up to it. And let's be clear, most of us are here playing ghetto lawyer. I am. Y'all are. Everybody that's talking about it is. I mean, when you hear ghetto lawyer, it's because some of us actually do have experiences. Some of us actually have seen things before. And then there's also just being of the world. You understand certain things, you apply logic and common sense. But there is always those times where you want to double over to the experts. We're going to bring an expert up here. This is actually Drake's lawyer as well, I believe. And I want to listen to what a lawyer says about what Dirk is facing, how he can get off, some of the uphill battles that he's facing, possibly. Very, very interesting stuff. And let's be clear, one thing that I want to say also up front, an obvious way that people would put out there, how do you beat such a case or a case period? Snitching. I personally don't ever see Little Dirk telling or incriminating anyone. That's just what I see over the years. And I know people rap that rap and they talk that talk and they don't stand that same shit every day, B. I get it. But Lil Durk, given his background, given his history, given you could see it in his aura when he talks about his father being incarcerated and messing up some of his childhood and how much he hates snitches. And we see him stand it to the point where um here comes feature money. He sends it right back. Who was that? Was that Gunna? Right? Sends it right back. Matter speaking of Gunna, he was really the only person of that type of stature to come out and denounce Gunna, right? He's like a rat's a rat and all that type of stuff. So he takes these public stances. He walks away from money. I believe Dirk stands that. So, of all the reasons to be the case, I know snitching is one of them. I do not believe that that's the avenue that Dirk would ever take. But let's see some of the struggles that he still may have and some of the areas where you see a little bit of light for him to possibly get through this. This is for the Dirk fans out there.
Now, authorities say that Banks and his rap collective, OTF, the one that I mentioned, they wanted retribution. They wanted payback. So he allegedly made it known that he would pay a bounty for anyone who killed Rondo, who's, by the way, his real name is Taekwon Bowman. Now, in the court documents, he's named as TB. I know there's a lot of different names here, but stick with me. We're going to try to make sense of this. So investigators say that in 2022, so this is 2 years after that Atlanta shooting of King Von, a plan came together to kill Bowman. The criminal complaint that was filed against Banks includes an affidavit from an FBI agent, and she gives her summary of probable cause. The affidavit reads in part, quote, Banks is the leader of the Chicago-based rap collective known as Only the Family, or OTF. In addition to OTF's status as a rap collective, I know based on the investigation that OTF also acts as an association, in fact, of individuals who engage in violence, including murder and assault, at the direction of Banks and to maintain their status in OTF. For example,
real quick, I know the self snitching will never end in hip hop. It'll never end in music. It'll never end in the streets, neither. People want their recognition. They want their rec. They want to be identified. They want their shine. They want their credibility. They want their stain. They want their rank. They want their stripes. I could just keep going. It's self snitching and self incrimination will never, ever, 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 ever stop. But when you see these rappers, with the chains marking their record labels, their hand signs and their handshakes marking their music groups, do you think that at some point they're gonna possibly smarten up and say they always watching? And even if I'm not into shit, right? There's this thing that we keep hearing. It's called what do they call it? What, the RICO. If they grab my boss and say he's the head of this organization and all this type of stuff, and then they want to get everybody that's rubbing their noses, or everybody that's ever said slap, or anybody that's ever said slime and all that, that means your ass gets wrapped up too. Even the chains need to stop. If there's anything going on around you, no chains, no handshakes, no gestures, no coded words, do music. That's it. It's impossible for y'all though, man. So it's crazy because you think OTF is supposed to represent a record label, right? But who we talking to? Who are we kidding here, right? If I go to the streets of Chicago right now, if I go to certain blocks, if I go to Land Round right now, I'm like, who's OTF? Am I looking for fucking rappers? It really, really? No, I'm not looking for rappers if I do that, right? Come on, man.
Example, based on evidence collected during the investigation,
I gotta
including the
stop.
interview of one of witnesses, I know that Banks put a monetary
Shout out to
bounty
Gary.
out for an individual with whom Banks was feuding named TB. And then there's a footnote at the bottom of that page that reads, due to serious safety concerns, this affidavit does not provide the identity of these witnesses. Based on the FBI's investigation, I know that witnesses and or their family members have already received threats and or have been contacted in what appears to be attempts to influence their participation in this investigation.
I think we're gonna hear more about that, right? All we heard about was a text message that Dirk supposedly sent saying, "Don't do no flights in my names." But we also did hear about possible communications from Dirk. We didn't see. I don't think we see any paperwork on it yet or anything, but possible communication saying what he would do if he found out that such and such was telling or snitching, right? I don't think that that type of news gets to us unless they possibly have something. More is going to be developed on that, but the witness threats and the witness tampering, all that type of stuff. I know that this right here is like, yo, there's light for Dirk based on what this lawyer is going to say. There's light for Dirk if there's no snitching. There's light for Dirk if certain people stand what they stand. But remember, we didn't see everything. So let's continue and hear what this lawyer got to break down.
What do you make of that, Bradford?
So it's basic, like a lot of these allegations, you can almost take each one of these and put them into every case that we've seen as of late, where witnesses are either contacted or witnesses are offered a monetary amount not to testify. And sometimes that comes with a civil case, like if there's a civil matter that's outstanding, they might say, hey, listen, there's a civil matter that you could have, and we're going to give you a settlement of XYZ. The feds automatically take that as you're buying off a witness. So it just depends on the facts of those circumstances. Like I've seen it many times where the feds read into it differently than you would if you just read it yourself, wherein people are trying to be influenced. A friend of a friend might contact you and say like, hey, listen, this isn't a good idea to be a witness in a federal case. The feds take that as, oh, hey, this is, Bob Smith influencing this witness because he's friends with this person who's friends with that person. A lot of times that doesn't shake out the way that they put it in the indictment. And they put that in the indictment specifically for bond purposes, right? So when you go in for bond, they say, hey, listen, this guy's trying to influence everybody. And here's all these things. But when you actually get into the case, sometimes those things don't shake out. And then it's already too late because you already moved for bond and you didn't get bond.
That's the
So I think that's interesting that he broke that down. So you talk about the witness tampering, etc. You talk about the possible witness threats to hopefully prevent the person from getting bond, right? Now there was a comment that we just brought up on the screen where Major League Ability says the feds drain your resources first. Now, remember, people, there's a difference between when we talk about your resources, right? Getting drained to means that you're just spending. Okay. That's totally different than you're frozen. All right. I have this bank account over here. They know that all that money that's sitting in that bank account came from me selling drugs. Frozen. Right. This house that I bought and the assets and all that frozen. So now you can't do nothing. That's different than draining. An example to me of draining would be like, let's keep extending out the trial date. Let's keep all the resources and all those wheels spinning. He's going to keep spending lawyer money. And next thing you know, you're 2-3 years in and you done spent your whole life savings on just your legal defense and the whole process, and still trying to hold down family and friends and your children that's still outside, keeping a roof over their head and whatnot. And you're not out in the street doing shows and collecting new checks and signing new deals and putting out new music and all that. Why do you think when people go to jail, or when they know that they're going to jail, especially if they got like a date set for them to go in later on, they try to backlog all this music so that they got all this stuff that can still be getting released while they're there to generate music. I mean, not music, money for your estate, for your friends, for your family, for your legal defense, for you, all that type of stuff, right? So as far as like draining of the resources, I still look at that very, very, very different. From a money standpoint now, I want to assume that if you could track down that the money that he made came from illegal or illegitimate sources, game changing. What do I know about Durk? Musician, as of recent, an actor, right? Where's this money coming from? So I just don't see that playing. I don't see that playing at all. But hold on, I want to go back to this key mention right here.
Things,
Pay
but when you
attention.
actually get into the case,
Actually get
sometimes
into the
those things
case.
don't shake out, and then it's already too late because you already moved for bond and you didn't get bond.
That's
So when we're talking about bond early on, right? Everybody believes that Durk got that money right now, regardless of what the bond. Well, if it's some Diddy $50 million package shit, I don't know if Durk got that, but Durk has a lot of fucking money. He has a lot of money. But I think it's interesting to hear an experienced lawyer say, like, yo, they could just put the witness tampering stuff in your initial claims and initial indictment just to try to make sure that the judge decides no bond for you. At which point you sit there, you're not outside generating money, and all you're doing is spending money on whatever you're trying to upkeep outside while you're defending yourself legally. Right. But like he said, case wise, get into the trial wise, that stuff may not shake out. Because now when I say, okay, you didn't told me that he has the potential of witness tampering. Prove it to me. Got some calls, got some text messages, got some witnesses. You don't have those things? Okay, 2 years ago, I denied his bond. So we won in that aspect if you're on the prosecution side, right? You may drain some money that he wouldn't have had to spend, wasn't even outside, continued to earn, right? So that's a win for the prosecution side. But as far as legally, what you're going to be able to charge, not charge him with, but actually convict him with, you don't have that. And I think details like that is what this lawyer is opening up for us.
It's the same thing that's happening with Sean Combs. I mean, well, that's
Correct.
a little different because he's not charged specifically with obstruction, but it's part of the racketeering count. I read this indictment. I didn't see anything that Lil Durk is charged specifically with obstruction or witness tampering. It's more the conspiracy. There's also federal weapons charges. So does that give you pause too that he's not? I mean, again, maybe I'm wrong, that he wasn't directly charged with anything like witness tampering, obstruction.
Yeah, it always gives me pause. Whenever the feds throw an indictment in, it gives me pause right away because a lot of times you'll see in the indictment, there's a lot of accusations in the indictment that when you start getting into it and it starts kind of flushing out the facts, they stretch what could be a basic fact, they stretch it into something that it's not. And I've seen this time and time again. So in this case, it could be individuals that are loosely associated with OTF or that is signed to the label or something else that has contacted a witness, and they're trying to put whatever they did onto Durk Banks. So that's the issue here, right? Is that they're just lumping them all together. They'll just say, hey, listen, because this guy did that, obviously Durk is the quote unquote leader of OTF. He must have known what was going on. Therefore, he shouldn't get a bond because this is a dangerous gang and etc. You notice they stopped short of saying this is a dangerous gang and said this is a dangerous association of individuals that known as OTF, which I thought.
This lawyer is good. He is experienced. Stop short of saying dangerous gang versus associates. That's where the layers come in. That's where the good old onion comes in. That's where insulation comes in. That's where multiple layers of separation come in. If like you watch some of these mafia movies, was it Goodfellas? The scene was it Paulie or whoever is like his right hand man or his number two or his underboss is whispering in his ear. Never no phones, never no text messages, never no nothing written down on paper, nothing like that. But that number two person comes right to his ear, whispers in his ear, right? What gets disseminated out underneath that, it's in ranks. Like you got the top guy, you got the consigliere and the underboss, and then you got the shit, I'm forgetting my mafia tree breakdown now. But like, let's say bosses under that, or managers, and then you got your street sergeants, and then you got your foot soldiers, whatever the case may be, right? And the foot soldiers are never supposed to know what the boss is thinking directly. They may hear some things. They're definitely not supposed to have any damn line of communication with the boss directly, right? So if you're stopping short of saying dangerous gang because you got to say dangerous associates, okay, Little Durk, boss or not, may still be considered an associate. But you're talking about the foot soldier, i.e., some OTF member that might be just down on the street putting in work or doing things and getting active. Show me the direct line. Show me the direct correlation, because yeah, I grew up with these guys. Yeah, they dangerous. Yeah, they street niggas, whatever. Yeah, I might have had a couple of them at my show, showing love back to who I grew up with. But show me the actual evidence and proof of me telling this person, aka foot soldier, this person down here, go do that. Show it to me. Prove that. Ooh.
Was interesting because generally speaking, when it comes to these any of these rap groups,
that's
so
one.
Like, there's
that's
OTF
one of them.
and YNW and YSL.
Thank you, Capo. Yes,
say,
thank
like,
you.
Hey, all of these nicknames, this is all a gang, and even though it's a record label, it's also a gang, and that's kind of their argument with every single one of these. And that's going to be their argument here. But I thought it was interesting in the indictment, it didn't specifically say gang. It said an association of individuals that go under OTF. I thought that was kind of interesting because I don't know what kind of evidence they have.
Nah, this guy's already got a big
OTF
reputation.
Is or is not a gang legally, the legal definition.
I thought it was PTSD from the YSL trial. Let's not rush to call
Yep,
anything.
we will
gang
get
because of all the trouble there.
Yes,
That's
we
a
will.
separate conversation. We can have a long talk about that.
One.
Okay, but this I think could be problematic for Lil Durk, and I'll get into this because on the morning of October 24th, we have federal and local law enforcement. They execute these search warrants in Chicago. They arrest Grant, Wilson, Jones, Lindsay, Houston. And that is when they learned that Banks had booked multiple flights that were leaving the country. The affidavit says the FBI received notifications from U.S. Customs and Border Protection showing that Banks had been booked as a passenger on 2 international flights, a one-way flight from Miami to Dubai, United Arab Emirates, connecting through Doha, Qatar, scheduled to depart the evening of October 24th, and one-way flight from Fort Lauderdale to Switzerland, connecting via New Jersey, also scheduled to depart the evening of October 24th. Now, Banks didn't board either flight, but at approximately 6:40 p.m., the FBI received an additional CBP notification that Banks had been booked as a passenger on a private plane departing Miami and destined for Italy, scheduled to depart at approximately 9 p.m. At approximately 8 p.m., Banks was arrested by law enforcement in the vicinity of the departing airport. So, Bradford, I mean, that seems to be evidence that he might have been trying to leave the country. You tell me what you make of that.
So, I make a couple different things of that. So the first part of that is all the countries that he has, that Dubai is going to extradite you. Switzerland's going to extradite you. These countries are going to extradite. The only places that don't extradite are like you go to Vietnam, you go to Morocco. There's certain countries that don't extradite, like strictly don't extradite. All these other countries, even if they don't have a treaty with the U.S. for extradition, they're going to extradite because they rely on the U.S. for money. They rely on the U.S. for support. Switzerland, especially. Italy will deport you in about 10 seconds. They'll extradite you in 10 seconds. So
interesting. I want to pause there for a quick second. That was the very obvious thought. Like, all right, you bought 3 tickets, 1 private jet to Italy, 2 commercial flights, 1 to Switzerland and 1 to Dubai, right? He says they would have all extradited him, extradite anybody. And he says Italy specifically will extradite you in a heartbeat. Very, very interesting. And once again, we are all the internet's ghetto lawyers, okay? None of us on this chat, as far as I know, them pass the bar. All right? But we learn things and we go through things and we experience things and we see things. So that's interesting. And not even to lean on, like, people don't think that you're going to do some crime and then just go Google some shit like, oh, who has the peace treaties with the states? Like he just said, even if they don't, you still have all these external entities that rely on America, not just for I don't want to say camaraderie, but how about peace? Or how about just like, hey, networking, rubbing shoulders? Hey, we don't got beef. We cool. We ain't finna spoil any type of business or relationship that we can continue to foster and build over some little rapper to the world. This is just a little rapper, Lil Durk, dime a dozen, not even a dozen. Multiply that by infinite. So nobody's gonna do that for him. Nobody's gonna do that, treaty or not. So people, don't be freaking Googling thinking like, oh, okay, yeah. No, that's not how it works. I think you got to have a bad relationship and or no treaty with the states to say I'm going here and I'm good. I saw a lot of people saying that Diddy should have went to Bali. I don't know. I don't know what type of relationship Bali had, treaty or not, as this lawyer is breaking down. I'll tell you the only example that I've heard of that it makes sense. Steven Seagal. I'll say allegedly because I haven't pulled it up in a long time. But Steven Seagal, if y'all know who I'm talking about, a legendary karate movie star, jujitsu, kung fu, whatever his classification was. I grew up on Steven Seagal and Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee and Van Damme. I grew up on them. Word is that Steven Seagal caught a charge on some minors or some essay stuff or possibly some R stuff. I gotta pull it back up. Word is he caught allegations or something like that related to that. He took his ass to Russia and said, I'm just going to do the rest of my life here. Goodbye. I'm never going to face those charges. And he just went like this to the States. And I think allegedly he's there to this day in Russia. Right. So these are people that don't have good relationships with the States. Russia, about China. Right. So if you're going to go somewhere, I guess you got to pay attention like, yo, nah, the States and them been beefing, or they don't fuck with each other at all, or they're not even trying to really get money together like that. And then came over here and tried to get us for oil. Word, nah, we don't fuck with the States. That's where you go. It may not be the most preferable. I get it. Everybody be like, let's go to Bali. A lot of us want to take vacations to Bali. I get it. Let's go to Bali. You might need to take your ass to fucking the Middle East. you might, you might. You might need to take your ass to Iran or some shit. It may not be the most preferable. You may not see concrete roads anymore. I take that back. That might sound a little bit stereotypical. There could be some beautiful cities out there. Let me take that back. But yo, that might be where you gotta go. Motherfuckers be wanting their cake and eat it too. Listen, you think you fitting to go put your feet up in Italy? What? You know how beautiful some areas of Italy are? Yo, they like, yeah, right. We'll see you back here in a second. Oh, shit. I think the funniest extradition ever was the Batman shit. The Dark Knight shit. We just having fun. It's not reality. Or is it reality? I don't think it's one person, but remember that scene, Dark Knight, when Batman came and got the dude? Joker had already pinned him. He was like, I know the snitches when I see the snitches. And he thought he was getting up out of there, huh? Batman went and got him and brought him home. Oh, shit.
So I don't make much of whether or not he was going to escape and flee the country. I think more than likely, and sometimes this happens, when it was unusual that there were so many booked, right? What's not unusual is sometimes where an individual doesn't know whether or not there's a warrant out for their arrest. And I've seen this before happen in the past, where some associates get arrested. And in order to see whether or not they have a warrant, because that's not public knowledge, whether or not they have a warrant, they'll book an international flight and it'll red flag them. And then they'll get a call from the FBI, or their lawyer will get a call and they'll say like, hey, your client's red flagged. They're trying to leave the country. Just so you know, they're under investigation or XYZ. And you find out information you wouldn't necessarily find out. Now, I don't know if that's the case here.
That makes so much sense. And he's the first person on the internet that I've seen with that take. So it's not ironic that it comes from an experienced lawyer. That right there makes so much sense. So when we heard initially the Italy, Dubai, and Switzerland flights were all booked, what do we all think? I mean, it was logical, but we all thought that, oh, he's just trying to play slick. He thinks that he's sneaky. You know, it's that thing like, you know, we got the 3 blacked out cars and the cops following them, right? One goes left or one goes right, one goes left, one goes to the middle, and they don't know which one to follow, right? That's what we was all thinking about the 3 flights. But then again, even I was able to say on a prior stream, I was like, when you're put on a no flight list, when you're flagged, it's a wrap. You don't need to be a celebrity or anything for that to happen to. You don't need to be caught up in that could happen to me. I could walk into an airport right now, get into a major brawl, and they could just tag me, face recognition and name recognition, all that type of stuff. Would you say this person can't fly? You just banned from flying. Like that can happen to anybody, right? So technically, if that type of shit could happen to anybody, then getting thrown off or like it doesn't matter, because if you're flagged, once you get there, it's a wrap anyway. But what this lawyer says is that sends off an alarm where possibly he was trying to use to figure out, okay, I seen these other OTF members get picked up. Do I have a warrant? I didn't hear nothing at this address. Nobody knocked on my door at this address. Nobody came over here. I just did a show last week. Nobody popped up to arrest me backstage. Do I not have a warrant? So the Switzerland and the Dubai flight is purchased just to see if ding warrant, this person can't fly. Then his lawyer gets notified and then he says, ooh, the Italy, I think he was trying to bust regardless. Like, I'm trying to get out of here for a second either way. But that's interesting coming from this lawyer, man.
Because there were so many that were booked. But I have seen that before in the past where a client will call me and say like, hey, Bob Smith got arrested. Can you check if I have a warrant? We can't check if there's a warrant. Oh, no one tells us there's a warrant. So
just to be clear about that, so you're saying instead of they didn't have an option where he calls his lawyers and say, hey, can you check with the feds to find out if there's a warrant out for my arrest? That wouldn't work. So you're saying this is a way for him to find out, hey, am I in trouble? I'm going to book these flights and see if they get flagged.
Sure. And it's happened before. Now, the difference here is there's so many flights. You know, there's 2 or 3 flights that were booked. That's the weird part of it. But it wouldn't be weird for me to see someone that books a flight to the Bahamas. They book a flight to, Italy or Spain. And then,
he done told some of his clients to do it before.
Flight,
I could tell.
They get a call or we get a call. That happens quite often. Now, it depends on your lawyer. Like, for example, me, if somebody says to me, hey, do I have a warrant out? And, my associate got arrested. I've been doing this so long, I can make a phone call and not necessarily find out if there's a warrant, but I'll find out. They'll tell me, hey, listen, don't have your guy leave the country. Like he's being watched. And then I know, okay, just let me know if I need to surrender him or whatever I need to do. And that's the relationship that you build over 30 years. Not everyone can do that.
That's an interesting alternative explanation for that. I'm sure it will come out in a bond, in a bond hearing if he's questioned about that. So let me go now to these alleged co-conspirators and what exactly happened here. We have to make sense of it. So the indictment that was filed in the Central District of California gets into it, and it says that all of them conspired and agreed with each other to knowingly use facilities of interstate and foreign commerce, namely airplanes, cars, cell phones, and the internet, with intent that the murder of TB be committed in violation of laws of any state, namely the state of California, as consideration for the receipt of and consideration for a promise and agreement to pay anything of pecuniary value, namely money and lucrative music opportunities with OTF. So this is a murder for hire plot in exchange for career opportunities or money. And according to the FBI and other investigators, Banks was the one who put out this call for a bounty. And then he got word that his apparent target, Bowman, was going to be visiting Los Angeles. So authorities say they have proof that Banks and or OTF provided the funds for 5 people to fly from Chicago to San Diego and then apparently drive to Los Angeles, with the plan being to kill Mr. Bowman. The indictment lays out what we call overt acts that they say this group committed in furtherance of this conspiracy. You can't just have an agreement. You have to have overt acts, overt steps that were taken to actually commit this crime. And the apparent proof ties it back to all the defendants. For example, one overt act says on August 18th, 2022, co-conspirator 1 texted co-conspirator 3, "Don't book no flights under no names involved with me." So again, that's allegedly Lil Durk writing that. There are text messages between 3 of the defendants showing that they had the same airline ticket information. One of them also messaged someone on Instagram to say, "On my way to LA." And it's also being reported that Banks himself allegedly flew to Southern California on a private plane, was staying at a hotel in the San Fernando Valley, and authorities say they have camera footage that puts him there. Grant, who was allegedly a top OTF associate, bought ski masks, got cars, then gave 3 people guns, including one that had allegedly been converted into a machine gun. This is a federal crime. This is what prosecutors.
I want to know which one allegedly flew private with Durk to LA and which one of these co-conspirators allegedly he is. I can't wait until they start releasing the names so then everybody can stop saying, we believe co-conspirator 1 is Durk. Like, I'm tired of us doing all the guessing and the breaking down of the paperwork. I'm ready to see the damn names. But imagine if the one that flew private with him to LA was the co-conspirator, for example, here that they laid out in the indictment was the one that bought the ski mask, was the one that rented the cars, the actual car that they got video footage of pulling up into the damn gas station and all that type of shit. That would be I don't know if case closed is the word, but that would be very, very tough.
Prosecutors are alleging Grant did. And the indictment says that 6 people total. They traveled in 2 cars to the hotel in downtown LA where Bowman was supposedly staying.
Not yet.
They allegedly started following Bowman, who was in a black Escalade with his cousin, Savia Robinson, known as SR. The indictment includes photos from a traffic camera showing the white Infiniti the suspects were in, seemingly following the black SUV. And the indictment says that the suspects then followed the Escalade to a Beverly Hills gas station, parked in an alley. And the indictment reads, on August 19th, 2022, at the Beverly gas station, the defendants Jones and Lindsay and co-conspirator 2 used the firearms procured by defendant Grant, including the fully automatic firearm, to shoot at TB's car, striking and killing SR, who was standing next to TB's car while TB was inside. And the images below show defendants Jones and Lindsay and co-conspirator 2 firing their guns at TB's black Escalade. So we have the death of SR. TB survived this attack. And the filing includes surveillance photos of what prosecutors say are the suspects appearing to fire guns towards the gas pumps. And you can see it's daylight in these photos at a gas station in the middle of Beverly Hills. So Bradford, whoever was responsible for.
Hey, real quick too, that's one thing that I didn't pay attention to back when Lil Pop got killed while he was in this truck and gas station with Quando Rondo. That's one thing that I that went over my head. The location, Beverly Hills. Everybody that even had small speculations, and I did on this channel weeks ago and months ago, like, yo, Lil Durk, is he gonna escape all of this buzz and all this talk that's going on and all these? Is he gonna get away with everything? He didn't caught a couple lottery tickets already, like the shooting with Vaughn and everything. Like, is he gonna get away? Is he gonna escape everything? But the location of it happening in Beverly Hills should have made us see then, when Lil Pop was murdered, like much more is to come. It's no different than the FBG Duck shooting down in the Gold Coast, right? Let's be real. Sorry, it's true. It's sadly true. How many of y'all done been in the hood and be like, yo, them cops, they come an hour late, called you. That's how Boys in the Hood starts, right? Pops and son in the crib, somebody breaks in. He's tight because he had his son outside waiting for the cops to show up after the home defense shooting. He lied and called y'all 90 minutes ago, right? So these different zip codes with different level of taxpayers, you kill, FBG Duck in the Gold Coast. Oh, no. I don't care if it takes 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years. They on it. Beverly Hills, the type of taxpayers that's there, the type of even tourism, let alone the people that live there, let alone the type of commercialism that's there. You got FBG Duck, rest in peace, getting murdered in front of Dolce & Gabbana. So you got the type of taxpayers, you got the type of commercialism, and then it's a whole nother ball game when you add tourism. Tourism. You ever go out the country to some of these resorts? Yeah, you got to be careful when you out of town in some of these third world countries, because the locals, they can smell a foreigner from a mile away. So when you out in the streets, or you out in the village, or you out in the neighborhoods, you better be careful of shit. No bulges in your pocket. Don't show that you got no wallet on you, no jewelry, no nothing. You better blend the fuck in as much as possible. You know what I'm saying? And look over your shoulder for real. But you get to the resort, you can't even pull into the resort with a cab, a company cab that you caught from a registered company at the airport without the gatekeepers at the resort looking in the trunk, looking in the back seat, checking the manifest, making sure your name is on the list to be checking in. Because when you talk about tourism, there's certain countries, they depend so much on tourism. Certain businesses, they depend on tourism. You go to Midtown Manhattan, you go to Times Square. I used to work in Times Square. For me, it's like weird, but I get it now that my eyes is more open. I'm walking past tourists and stopping in the middle of the street, taking a picture of stupid shit. I'm just like, that sign has been there for 20 years. You don't need a picture of it. No, they do. It's tourists. Tourists. Beverly Hills. Shooting there? I should have paid attention to that back then. Like, more shall fall. Beverly Hills, period. More shall fall. Crazy.
For this. What a blatant crime. What a blatant act in the middle of it. But talk to me how strong you think this case is based on what I've been saying. If we're trying to prove, if the prosecutors are trying to prove conspiracy, what do you make of some of this evidence? Text messages, surveillance, travel receipts. What do you make of it?
I think that Durk will still have a defense. I think that, I don't know everything that's going on. Obviously, no one does. From what I'm reading in the indictment, I think there's some missing pieces there when it comes to Durk about how involved he was in this alleged conspiracy. The other guys, where they all have plane tickets, they all got a car, they're on tape. That's going to be a very difficult case for those lawyers who have that case, because, and I've said this multiple times on multiple cases. There are so many ways these days to catch individuals in this type of crime, where you have cell phone records, GPS data. You're going to have cross-reference on the phones, what phones are together at what times. You're going to have car rental agreements. You're going to have videotapes. It's real funny because very often you find these red light cameras and things like that the feds get on state cases where I want the footage, where I know it's good for my client. They're like, sorry, we don't save that footage. But somehow the feds get, camera footage from red light cameras, camera footage from the next door neighbor, camera footage from some guy who's just randomly on the street. So you'll see that they will put together a forensic case against the actual shooters that, will be very heavily based on cell phone records, GPS data, and videotapes. Now, when it comes to Durk Banks, so far I've seen one text that says, don't have them associate my name with any kind of flights that they're taking. Certainly that's not a good text, but is that the only text? Because that doesn't, that in itself doesn't stand on its own. Certainly it's circumstantial. But like I said,
that's interesting.
We have to wait and see what other evidence.
It's interesting to hear that from an attorney. Now, the only reason why I'm gonna take that with a grain of salt is because he's a defense attorney. So he's conditioned, let's be real. Sorry, it's true. He's conditioned to give hope. No lawyer ever takes the position of, oh, don't worry, I'm going to get you off. They will rarely ever do that. They damn near can't. You know what I'm saying? But given opportunity of or the thought and the feeling of hope, so I don't want to just stand on that. That's really how it works out there. But him saying, that text message that we are all going crazy over on the internet, let's be real, the whole, he texts, don't put me on no flights, put my name on no flights. We bugging out over that. We like, oh, damn, guilty. To hear almost the opposite from this lawyer, you got to be open-minded. And it does make sense, because a good lawyer logically could say that shit means a million different things. Don't put my name on no flights, right? Or what if I don't know what you're up to, and I'm just like, yo, don't put my name. What if I'm talking about taxes? I think that I'm going to get off on some taxes by this. Hey man, we fit to use your corporate card, company card, or the corporate account to go out to LA to handle some business. All right, man, whatever you do, just don't put it on my name, because when I file my own taxes, man, like, we just made one up right there. Yeah. So to hear this from, I could say this as a ghetto lawyer, and people could agree or disagree with me talking from a place of opinion or logic. But when we hear it from an experienced lawyer, I think we got to pay attention to that a little bit more. Now, Dirk got an uphill fucking road, but details like this, it's a little game changing when it comes to perspective.
Evidence they have, if they have a snitch, if they have videotapes or audio tapes of him saying something, I think that's a lot different than, hey, just make sure you don't associate my name with these guys. Because he could be blaming, Grant or one of these other guys and saying like, hey, these guys are going to do some crazy stuff. And he's like, hey, listen, make sure it doesn't associate with me at all. You can look.
But like we started the stream by saying, Dirk would never say that. He would never say that. And technically, there's people that wouldn't categorize that as snitching. I would. Y'all see my videos on snitching. But, technically, he could just say, hey, I think that somebody might do something crazy out of that. That's what I mean. I didn't put my name on it. Dirk just seems like the guy that wouldn't even make a reference to say, I knew that people was about to do something, whether I was involved directly or not. So that's never going to get played.
Look at that a million different ways. So I'm hesitant to say that they have, a slam dunk case on Dirk Banks. I think that they have a long way to go on Dirk Banks in order to prove the conspiracy against him. I think the others, it's going to be very heavily based on paperwork.
So in other words, I mean, look, I said it before, what a blatant attack. You're shooting in the middle of the day near gas pumps, which could explode. If you make the argument that the case against
I never thought about that.
shooters is really strong, could there be a situation where they work out an attractive plea deal? I don't know what an attractive plea deal would look like for them, considering what they're facing and what the accusations are, where they turn on Lil Durk. I mean, what would be a scenario that would look that? What kind of deal could be worked out where you're working a deal out with the alleged shooters to go after the principal of this case or the alleged principal?
It's happened quite often in the past. And if you told me, the deal that Sammy the Bull worked out, right? The guy killed like 19 or 20 people. He ended up getting, I don't know, a year or two in jail followed by probation. If you told me that was a deal that someone would get for, being associated with 19 or 20 murders, I would tell you that's an impossible deal to get. So it all depends on the hunger of the U.S. attorney and the AUSA.
Interesting hearing them say that, but when you think about it, the only reason I'm not speaking as a lawyer, but the only reason why I disagree with him right there is looking now back at what we already know and the gravity of John Gotti. That's really what I see there. The gravity of John Gotti. John Gotti was damn near a fucking mayor / president. It felt like they got movies on the man. John Travolta played him in Gotti. That's not the best Gotti. The best Gotti was the HBO movie. But anyway, that's a classic, by the way. But this man ran newspaper headlines. He was beloved. This was John Gotti was so big of a news story and a boss and a energy that I do believe that the feds would sacrifice a Sammy the Bull back on the street to get John Gotti. To this, we still talk about John Gotti like the mafia is active right now. Right? You talk about these mafia families and took over New York. One of the premier locations in the world. New York. Wow, man.
That's involved. And if they want this individual badly enough, they'll make very attractive deals for these individuals. What does a very attractive deal look like? I think they go for the lowest hanging fruit. Whoever, didn't actually kill the guy, maybe someone that was involved that didn't actually shoot, or someone that shot, but it didn't hit, they're going to have forensics. Yeah. So they'll take whoever is the least culpable, and I think that they'll approach him and make a deal with him that'll be the most attractive. And if that guy doesn't make a deal, they'll move on to the next guy. So usually that's what happens, right? You go for the lowest hanging fruit first, the guy that you think will flip, the guy that didn't really have that much involvement. And I think what also is interesting with the indictment is it wasn't just money. They're like, oh, it could have been money or it could have been career advancement,
Right.
which is, it's strange to mention that because they don't really go into any kind of facts about it. They just say it could have been.
So they don't have the detail
they
possibly.
would have advanced in their career. But what does that look like? Durk promised them like a record deal, like it doesn't.
Or they assumed it.
Strange.
And if they assumed it, that's a weaker case for the prosecution. If it was just like, oh.
Boom. I mean, I think that last piece by the lawyer is the heaviest part. And what it sums up to is, I want to look up the stat. After the stream, I'm going to pull it up. If somebody pulls it up right now, drop it in the chat. Drop in the chat or drop in the comments. State cases as well as Fed cases, of which, of both actually, of those state convictions, use where's he being tried? In California, okay? Do of all California state cases, how many convictions involve cooperators or informants for criminal based prosecutions? And you could do the same thing for the feds. Of Fed cases, of what percentage of convictions involve informants? It really, really does seem like this lawyer is leaning like, you know, a lot of this stuff is gray. A lot of this stuff has layers between. A lot of this stuff can be interpreted multiple different ways. Like, hey, don't put me on the flight. Don't put my name there. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of these things that they're leaving vague was on purpose because they didn't necessarily have something, right? So stuff like that boils down to what? Informants, snitches. I said on the Chris Brown stream that we did the other day, I started the stream because while I was in the middle of going live, I read a text from my man, and he said, I know this is about this, keep up with me, the layers of separation. His mother has a friend whose son just got subpoenaed in Chicago. And I didn't want to say publicly the affiliation of this person to Durk, but it is somebody that is very, very close to Durk. I called him right after the stream was over. I will never get any information on this, and neither will he, because this is like the older mother's friendship, basically. This is how my man found out. You know, she's like, boy, she calls her son, my man. Boy, you know, they say that Lil Durk. You know Lil Durk, right? Yeah, ma. Yeah, that's a big rapper. Yeah, that, you know, Gladys then told me her son just got subpoenaed. Oh. So, you know, the mother over there probably doesn't know what's going on internally. And even if she does, she's not going to talk. And then even if she does talk, it's not going to get back to me. So I'm not going to be able to bring out that. But it's somebody extremely, extremely close to Durk that just recently got subpoenaed. And the moment you get a subpoena, you better call your lawyer, right? Because the moment they're able to contact you, you need to go in. Because I believe you can be charged if you don't, right? The best thing to do is to avoid a subpoena. Don't let people get in touch with you somehow. Don't let nobody show up at your job. I ain't getting into all that on stream. But anyway, it's the snitches and it's the informants that I feel like this lawyer is alluding to at the end there that would really make this case. Informants. And if there's no big informants that directly tie Durk like that, see, the thing is, we do so much of the common sense. Like, come on, we know the lyrics. Come on, we know what he meant when he said this. We know what he meant when he did this. We saw the academics interview. We know why he reacted like that. And he said, I don't know, for some reason, I don't hear that slap of on no more. You hear that? We different in the rap. We know what the fuck he meant. We're not gonna play stupid. But you know what happens with us? We get so much caught in that, we forget that right there don't necessarily get you a guilty verdict in court. If the prosecution came to the table and said, you see this clip of this academics interview, he's alluding to doing something. And that's not evidence. That doesn't constitute a fact of him being involved in Lil Pop getting murdered. It just doesn't. We could all read between the lines and be smart and be logical, but in court, that's not supposed to say, oh, guilty. If that was the case, all these niggas would be in jail already long time ago. So it changed. This video with this lawyer changes my perspective a little bit, even though it's very, very early. I know it's very, 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 very early. More will be coming out. Never know what happens as the subpoenas continue or informants get pushed, if not already. So there's a long way to go. Another thing that this lawyer said is that he feels like cases like this, even when they're rushed in the feds, can still trial out 2 years out. We might be hearing this open up further and further Pandora's box for the next 24 months. I don't think it's going to be no YSL shit. But this doesn't have to be some shit that y'all think is going to be closed down within the next 6, 7, 8 months. Not going to happen. So there's going to be a lot to come. But this lawyer changes my perspective on certain things. I admit, definitely changes my perspective. Let me ask y'all a quick question before I get up out of here. Do y'all want my next live? I'm going to come back and try to do another live tonight. And one thing that I guarantee y'all by tonight, a members only video will be dropping. I guarantee y'all by tonight, a members only video will be dropping. But I also want to try to get a normal second live out today. If I make it back for a second live today, would y'all rather us discuss the paperwork on Meg Thee Stallion's lawsuit against a blogger to try to hush narratives towards her situation with Tory Lane? We see Tory Lane developments recently. Would y'all rather that stream? Drop a 1 in the comments and in the chat if y'all want that stream. Or would y'all rather us talk about a stream of Ray J getting ran down on by Diddy's sons? Drop a 2 for that. Do y'all want 1 or 2? I'm gonna pay attention to the chat real quick before we get up out of here. 1 for the Meg breakdown on her lawsuit towards the blogger. Looks like some hushing that they trying to do over there at Rock Nation, allegedly. Allegedly, don't sue me too. Allegedly. Or do we want to talk about Ray J getting ran down on by Diddy's sons? You're supposed to stay out of the headlines. Anybody associated with Diddy and has a last name Combs, what are y'all doing running down on anybody? You should be shaking hands and hugging everybody when there's cameras around. What the fuck? Y'all want 1 or 2? All right, hold on. Let me scroll up. Let me try to do a general. Oh man, this shit is fucking mixed. Damn it. I thought y'all gonna pick one or the other clearly. Fuck. Damn. This shit is mixed. All right. What I'll do is I'll take a look at both and we'll try to see which one, at least today at this very moment, is a little bit more interesting. But members, stay in tune. I definitely got y'all with a members only video by tonight. Okay. Appreciate y'all. We keeping our eyes on everything moving. Thank you, everybody that continues to shoot me information, keep me in the loop. Stay active on my Twitter, please. We're gonna stay in the loop. And if you're a member, I'm gonna try to do my best to even respond to y'all more in the video comments. All right, the live, you see how we doing the live already. You know, shout out to the members and shout out to everybody. I definitely always try to prioritize members in the chat, right? Members and supers in the chat. But in the comments, I definitely want to try to respond more to members. So shout out to the members and shout out to everybody on the Sorry It's True type time. We back in a second. We working.
Don't confuse silence with work ethic. I'm a boss making decisions, my first fetish. The verse cherished is perfect, that's a reverse blemish. I drop it, connected to block, learn Tetris.
This is the Sorry It's True podcast. Welcome to the house of and shout out to the members.
Without, I think still got a gun.